I think that actually, because it is providing all these goods and services for the citizens, you have to go through whatever education system. And I think it'd be like, oh, yeah, you really want to be a door guard, Johnny. You do. You want to be a
Oh,
door guard.
so
I think
they're
that's what's
basically
happening.
doing the German system where it's like, yeah, we did your aptitude test, and this is what you're going to be good at, and we're going to spend the next 10 years training you how to do this, so that you're going to be the best of the best, and you're going to be all you can be as this individual. I mean, that would be, I mean, and that's creepy.
I think that's exactly what they would have to do.
I mean, yeah,
I mean,
I mean, I would think at some point you would, okay, so you're gonna have two different things happen. The bulk of your people are going to become kind of stagnant and listless, and you're going to have other people who are going to get, are going to basically put on bowler hats and long johns and go around beating the crap out of people.
no, they won't. No, they won't. And um, because I think because that's not happening now. And it should be. Like, there should be far more unruly youths out there right now. And I think they're being anesthetized with drugs and video games and pornography. And I don't think that the Federation wouldn't use that
Oh,
to keep. There's some kind of soma, I think. I don't buy that they just let people do whatever they want at all.
yeah, I don't see how you have a functional society if everybody's allowed to make a choice. Uh, you're just going to have critical things that can't get done. I mean, there's a certain amount of like if it like okay, so here's the thing that would be kind of a pisser too. It's like, okay, imagine you're a biologist. Okay, I'm a really great biologist, and apparently I would say if as a biologist, like your greatest thing you could strive for would be to be a Federation biologist on some kind of starship. Okay, so you probably got to be the top 0.001% to get into a job like that in Federation. And you could spend the rest of your life trying and never get close and getting in there. So, how do you stay motivated if you realize, like, I'm never going to make the cut?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. This is a dream that's not happening. I can be the best biologist in Detroit, but I can't.
Now, see, the thing is, if now that they had some kind of incentive system where it's like, okay, hey, okay, you're a biologist, but you need to double as a replicator repair person for the next. If you get X amount of hours in doing replicator repair, that gives you a leg up to going in. So that would be kind of like a non-monetary inducement. And maybe they could do something like that, but it's never hinted at that's how things go. I mean, it's basically the every person is the best whatever it is they can be. That's what we've allowed things to do as a federation.
Yeah, and like, well, I work in software, and I'm trying to imagine like, okay, well, why would I do that? Because again, like you say, it might be very, very cool to design the software systems for starships, less so for garbage disposals.
Yeah.
And so yeah, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just play guitar?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, why would you play guitar?
Well, because that personally I like that. But but the thing is, I don't. You don't have to like it. Like I had when I was 16 years old, I had a girlfriend who wrote bad poetry, and she's 47 now, and she still writes bad poetry. It didn't get better after all this time. There are plenty of people who want to do art that can't do art and want to do creative things that will never get better at it, that will never be something that humanity cares about. It doesn't bring us forward in any way.
Hmm. Now, just you made me think of something with art. One of the things that seems to reoccur on the show, at least as far as I can see, is there doesn't seem to be a lot in the way of original art being made. There's a lot of artists doing artistic things, but essentially you have music. They seem to be playing classics. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Painting and sculpture, they seem to be copying styles and working off them rather than actually creating something that's particularly new or interesting. Now that's I'm sure that's entirely an accidental artifact, but that could be a way of how you'd explain your artistry, where it's like, okay, if you're playing guitar, like, well, how do you get better? Well, you don't get better by being creative. You get better by practicing the stuff that everybody likes to hear.
So it's best for me to either learn Paganini or Led Zeppelin or whatever.
Yeah,
But
whatever's going at the time.
yeah, that's interesting.
And again,
But
I'm sure that's purely accidental that they do. I think what they probably did it on purpose because they didn't want to introduce an element of, okay, if you try to do something creative artistically in a TV show, you're probably saying more about the culture than you've put thought into the culture.
yeah, yeah, but
Well, like say,
I could go on a whole
yeah,
about art.
yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
was recently at the Atlanta Museum of Art, and I had a whole bunch of thoughts on that I can't go into with Star Trek.
yeah. But I mean, think of, I mean, trying to like show people listening to contemporary music, contemporary to the 23rd century. Uh, One, it's a lot of work, and two, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot about the people, really. At least not from the vantage of what type of story they're trying to tell. So if you just want to get the idea across that like someone Data is trying to be artistic, well, you pick a bunch of stuff that at least we have some vague familiarity with, where they'll say, "Oh, well, I'm copying the styles of so and so, so and so, and so and so, and putting them in here." And says, "Oh, that's kind of original because why would you consider putting those three together when nobody else had?" You know, but so okay, so let's
Well,
go ahead.
but to be fair, I mean, like, uh, people doing neoclassical sculpture is still a thing.
Yeah,
Everybody plays Mozart and Beethoven and stuff like that.
yeah,
You
I think
know,
it's easy and familiar. That's why they did it.
well, no, I believe that as long as the music survives in some form, and
Oh, I agree
if we
too.
can play it, people will do it.
Yeah,
People will be
it'll
like,
still
"Oh,
be there.
cool."
Yeah, it'll still be there. I
Because
agree. Um,
if you want to, you can go find somebody who's playing music from the 500 AD. you know, so
okay, so let's talk about this vineyard again. So
that's
let's say you and I are hanging out in the 23rd century, and we're like, it'd be cool to have a vineyard. How do you do that? Okay, so you're talking about like, oh, this has been in the family, blah blah blah, and so you're kind of inferring that this inheritance just kind of carried along, and they got really lucky, and the Federation didn't go, that'd be a great place for a shuttle landing pad, Federation eminent domain, clear some of that stuff out. So, but imagine, here we are, we're like, hey, man, this is what, we've been working in our basement, we've been venting this stuff. People love it. We want to go on a bigger scale so that more people out there can enjoy this. How do we break in to the venting business? How does the Federation decide that they're going to cut us 40 to 100 acres for us to set up vines on.
Yeah, I, I don't know. But and to your point, though, in one of the movies, I think it was Generations. It was the crossover
Yeah.
between the next generation and the old one. Um, it's I guess it's kind of a dream sequence, but it's Picard and Kurt is at his house,
Mm-hmm.
and he mentions at some point when he's here, he's like, "I know this couldn't be real because I sold this property years ago."
Mm.
What does that mean? Okay, first of all, it means that he had a house and it was for his exclusive use, and it was on a beautiful piece of property next to a creek.
Yeah.
And then he got rid of it to somebody for some kind of exchange. So this exists somehow in the Federation, and they never make it clear.
Yeah.
Is all the private property owned that can be owned, and then from then citizens are free to exchange it? But everything else is just,
Yeah. So
like national forest.
you don't have a monetary system, but you have property.
Yeah.
So yeah, that creates some very interesting idea. Have you ever heard any of the socialists or Marxists talking about that aspect of things? I know they like to talk about the no money issue, but
Well, actually, people that I've read and talked about and everything else are like, actually, this sounds more fashy than anything else. The Federation sounds kind of fashy because we want to do a certain amount of business, and that's outside. In fact, it's postulated that the Federation credits are as Federation as Federal Express is federal. That this is probably some type of private exchange currency, like a Bitcoin kind of thing,
hmm,
that can be done. Um, and the Federation owns money. Like they have to they have to put away stores of gold, pressed platinum, or they can't do business with the Federation. So they might have a kind of basic gig for everybody, but then you have some private exchange going on the side all the time. That's that's outside of your base food, shelter, blah blah blah.
hmm.
That's you know
Well, it kind of sounds like, well, we've got money, but we're not going to call it money. Uh, Now, I know one thing I heard, and because and this is another issue with, because for the most part, the various novels don't get considered canon, and a lot of times, the authors do a really good job, cleverly fixing the gigantic plot holes and things. And apparently, one of them was dealing with the idea of transportation credits. So imagine, here you are on Earth, and you're like, it'd be really cool. I'd really like to, see Alpha Centauri B. Let's go travel there. Well, how do you do that without a monetary system? You get on an extraordinarily long waiting list. Everyone takes their turn.
Interstellar buses.
Well, end up like what do they call that with passengers, which is basically hop on a freighter and go someplace like that.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, but still keep running into the same problem. Is there's got to be far more demand for travel than there's ability to go on to go to travel, and it almost sounds like it's going to end up exclusively being you know federation people and their dependents getting to do most of the stuff. But then every once in a while in the episodes, it seems like some of the ships are privately owned. Some kind of
Mm-hmm.
various freighters and stuff aren't necessarily Federation. So how does that happen? I mean, you've got all kinds of how does this happen? Because it's like, okay, how does the freight, how did they decide they need this freighter? Uh, who are the people who decide they're going to be the best they could be building freighters, to build that particular freighter and be proud of it and talk about it from there on? Yes, I made that freighter. That's no, no, we don't have money. I didn't accept any money for it. I'm just so proud of the freighter I built. Look at that freighter. Uh,
Yeah, that took me, years
yeah.
to talk about, like, far off planets, the colonies and everything, because they do have resource problems,
Yeah.
clearly. But like, if you're on Earth, they've got very cheap, very abundant energy. They have, and is this why we can have such a weird system? Is because we have a thing that can replicate almost anything, and we have energy that might as well be free. It's, and what else? And we have a transportation system that doesn't require vehicles
Hmm.
at all. I mean, you can if it's far enough, you can teleport there, and then you just walk to the rest of the way to your destination. It's now the culture of Star Trek. What does that do to a person when you have those things in your life? What do become your goals? If you're just, hey man, you're free to do anything, I can't see actually this largely being good.
Yeah. I mean,
There's
you would have to have a brutal economic system, or excuse me, brutal education system. I mean, you'd have to have one that makes the German system currently, you know, look like our system now, where it's just okay, yeah, go in there and do whatever you. You'd have to have literally somebody guided their whole life to where you're telling them day in and day out, yep, this is what you're good for, and you're going to feel good doing it. Now, here's a thought. I kind of backtracking a little bit. You're talking about like the idea of the difference of the economics at home versus the periphery. You want to get fashy on it. Uh, one of the things that the Germans did during World War II is the soldiers were paid in a particular form of marks that were only functional outside the homeland. So what they
okay.
so what they were doing was is they like so they take over a country, they wipe out its economic system, and they say, okay, this is the fiat currency, these soldier marks, this is what you got to use. And so what happened is the soldiers would come in, they had all the money, so they would buy up stuff for themselves and then package up the rest and send it home to their families. And so these soldier marks never circulated back home. So they didn't cause mass inflation back home. They did cause it mass inflation in the outer periphery because they had the ability to infinitely because they every time they got a paycheck they would just go out and clean the shelves off of everything, and then they would be the first in line in an inflation setup, and then basically everybody else who lived there would be the secondary market trying to buy up what was left with the money flowing in. And so that was one of the ways they kept their economy running through the war is they were able to use the soldiers, the occupying soldiers, to essentially pilfer the actual wealth of the places by buying it with worthless marks that were forbidden to be used in the homeland.
Wow.
So this is kind of another thought I had along the whole how in some ways this would kind of end up being a hellish system. Uh, so imagine you're some non-federation race and you're slowly working your way up towards, you know, you're gonna get your warp speed technology coming up, and
Uh-huh.
and so the whole time the Federation's been kind of peeking in at you. Okay, they're not there yet. Leave them alone. And so you're kind of oblivious to anyone out there. And so you all of a sudden you're like, all right, I got my warp drive, and you get out there, you kick it on, or the Federation sees a warp signature turn on, and they go, oh, cool, friends. We can go talk to them now because they've now crossed the threshold. And they go meet up with this scientist, and he's like, "Oh, right, hey, yeah, I was kind of hope people would be out there." And he's like, "Well, here's what I want to do. I want to head over to that great red giant over there because I've been watching that since I've been a child, and et cetera, et cetera. And our telescopes say there's a planet around it, and the Federation, oh yeah, there is a planet around it, and we colonized it. It's a pleasure planet where you can go hiking and mountain climbing, and there's hot springs and all this other stuff. You'll love it." Oh, well, there's this other star over that way where we've seen some planets around that we were thinking, oh yeah, the agricultural colonies of Beta 5-6. Yeah, they're beautiful, blah blah blah. We can plant. And so he's I can see these poor aliens going, well crap. What's the point? There's nothing left to explore. I mean, you guys are spreading out in every direction, and you just bypassed us by because we weren't ready yet, and now you're on every single side of us. Yeah, I guess we're going to break off talks. We're not going to talk to you anymore. If you come to our planet, we're at war. Go away. But I mean, it's just thinking this poor scientist probably having dreams of going and visit these planets, thinking he's going to be the. So, what do you think? Does the Federation use massive indoctrination of its youth in order to get everybody to fit the roles that need to be fulfilled for their society to work? Is that why people are happy where they're at? Because they've been told that way from their very young age. Is there a Federation Bitcoin like system out there? And what about art? Is art depicted in the series an artifact of something made for the audience to be able to understand more easily? Or is it a sign of some form of stagnation in the arts? Comment below. Be interested to hear what you have to say. Please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithm has brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, please look at our many other titles out there. I'm sure you'll find something that interests you. Consider subscribing. And if you know somebody who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with us this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.